religion that has been based on Western Judeo-Christian beliefs, because whether it be Islam, Judaism, Christianity, they all have this perception in so many ways of demeaning the feminine. Why? Well, that was also manipulated and taken out of context, I believe, many, many, many centuries ago. I don't believe it's always been that way. But I'm not going to go into that because that's a discussion that would go on forever and nobody gets anywhere. We have to bring it back to now. We have to bring it back to ourselves and change our perception and our relationship to our own sexuality and sensuality, and how we allow the senses of our being, which our senses are our sight, our hearing, our touch, our smell, our breath. How do they encompass our life? Why are so many people completely at odds with themselves? Who they were born as, who they choose to become, who they've been told they are. None of this is in the 3D world. You have to go back inside yourself and reconcile that in a very private and powerful way. And when you do, it doesn't matter what comes out the other side, but if you come out on the other side as your authentic self, absolutely everything will change. This authenticity is so, so crucial, most especially in these days. So when I did this theatre production, and sex was, and I began it, it's like, this is what it is. And I'm not exactly sure what else I said, but it went on for a little bit. And then I had a young friend who was a dancer, and far, far younger than I. And I asked her to do some improv dance, and she agreed. And so I had some music that had a Middle Eastern influence to it, because it was very grounding but ethereal and very sensual. And it's like this beautiful flowing music that, I don't know about anybody else, but it definitely touches the very core of my being, and the muscles just activate. And I saw it with this young woman, the same thing, and we just flowed. We had no rehearsal. We just allowed those energies to work with us and flow through us and touch. And then there was not a word was spoken, and a welcome indicator with my hands to the audience to say, come. Come. And within a minute or so, one person stood up and moved, and another one came up. And within a few minutes, everyone in the audience was up and dancing. Not a word was spoken, and they all moved and flowed in the manner that they did. And to me, it was the most powerful and amazing example of exactly what I was talking about. It was, we tapped and allowed everyone's senses to be awakened and heightened to such a point that their vulnerabilities, their embarrassment, the inhibitions dropped away, because the music and the invitation was so pure that it said, come, move and join us in this ethereal, sensual, and awakening, grounding gift that we are giving each other. And it was an amazing example of what can happen. When most people would say, it would never happen, never happen. It's like, oh yes, absolutely it does. So how do you keep this? Well, obviously you can't keep it. Like everything, it goes in highs and lows. And sometimes we are are very high and awakened and sensual and alive and in the right place. And there's, hopefully the partner is at the same. But that doesn't always happen because it's biorhythms as well. And so you have to learn the biorhythms, and we have to learn each other, who they are and what they are and how they work and how they apply and what their stress levels are and what's going on in their life and in their work and emotionally and mentally, and what's happening in my life and my emotions and my mental capacities, and how are they in sync or are they not? Because if they're not in sync and the demands are there, it is going to be a struggle. And it is going to be a battle. And it is like, this is your role, you have to, I demand this, and the other side is saying, no, I'm not in the mood, I've got a headache, no, I can't do this, or the reverse. And it can, of course, then come up in anger and violence and whatever. But we have to address why do those things happen? Because I think many a time, the excuses that we expect to have, but they're not the truth of why we say no, or why we say yes, or one thing happens and the other thing doesn't. There's no one answer, there's no straightforwardness to any of this. Yet it's in identifying that. And that is what I have really truly begun to realize, that in the years since 61, that I have started to realize that those are the things and the aspects that are the most crucial to address or to accept. And they don't always go the way you think they're going to go or the way they should go. And in the maturity, you make choices that you would not have made earlier. And that is the growth. And that is the gift. Because as you grow and you learn about yourself, because yourself is the primary one of understanding. No, and the other has to learn and understand themselves like no other. And when those two are in a comfortable place of grounding and respect and appreciation and consideration, then all things can flow and happen and be enjoyed on very many different levels. And they're not always the physical, but often they are. So allow your senses to engage the ecstasy of life. First off, the ecstasy of your life, of who you are, through the fears, through the vulnerabilities, through the doubts, through the manipulation of your mind by yourself and or others. And then you can appreciate when you see yours. You can appreciate that the other is also going through their version of exactly the same thing for different reasons or similar reasons. But when you can see these things, you have far more empathy instead of going off the deep end like we do when we're 20, 30, 40, or 50. It's crazy. You know, the jealousy and the anger and the resentment and the revenge and all of these things. And this now we go back to the power, the potential of wonder, engaging our regalness to be all that we can be and not playing in the games that our mind and the 3D world wish us to do. For when one person makes the change and changes their perspective of how they look at themselves, how they look at others, how they touch the insides of themselves and the outside, their behavior in any of these particular circumstances can reflect back, can influence how others react, see you, attract to you, repel from you, choose to be like you or not. Who we are and how we behave and our integrity are the most important things that we have. For without those, our worlds fall apart. And so to leave you on a more positive note, let's get back to the topic. So next time you find yourself in a place of sharing love, friendship, joy, respect, awaken the senses to engage ecstasy in the experience of where and who and what you are creating and becoming. Feel it and see how and if it becomes different for you. It may take practice. But what a wonderful way to practice. To change the world and to change ourselves. One person plus one to change and become a light for all to witness.